Last week I took a holiday for the first time in a couple of years, and I got home and I couldn't get in because the lock had failed. Wonderful way to end a vacation, not being able to get into my own place. I actually had to break in. Let's see what went wrong.
When you see keys sitting on a bench or table, you got to wonder what's he up to this time? Why are there keys here? Well, it's because I just got back from holidays, and when I went to unlock my office, I put the key in the door, and the key turned, but the door didn't unlock. It would not unlock the door, and the reason it would unlock is because, well, normally these locks, when you put in the key, I had to break into my office. I had to replace the lock, but when you turn the key, normally what happens is it's supposed to turn the knob on the inside so that it will pop out and release the locking mechanism so that you can actually get in. I had to put a pair of pliers on the door handle and twist it off so that I could get in, so that I could remove the lock from the inside and replace it. So we're going to take a look at this lock and see what broke on it and why it doesn't work. So I had to break into my own place, basically. So screws come out. So inside these locks, the problem's not on this side, by the way, it's on this side. When you put the key in, normally what happens is this is the shaft that turns to open the door. And you can see that part's working fine. The lock mechanism locks down onto here. And when you put the key into one of these locks, what it does is the pins that line up with the cut of the key raise up out of the way so that you can turn the center shaft. And what the center shaft does is this center shaft turns the lock control, which is supposed to pop out this, but you can see this is completely seized up. It won't release. So the problem's inside here. So this part still works, this part doesn't. So I figured, okay, I've had to go buy a new lock, which was fun because due to local codes, local building codes, they've gotten rid of these type of locks. Now everything's got to be a lever operated lock, so that people with disabilities can open the door a little bit easier. I'll leave it at that. It also makes it easier for children to escape because you can't put those little grippers on that the kids can't turn, right? The little child protection locks. But the other problem with having handles on doors is I have cats that are smart enough that know that they can, I've got one door with a handle on it, my addition, that they can pull down on the handle and open the door and escape. So I have to keep the deadbolt locked at all times or I'll have cats that escape. So I don't really like the bylaws that they've put in place, mostly at the local level, but because in some cities you can still buy these type of locks, but in most of the places you can't. You can only get levered ones. No exceptions. So the other thing I don't want is I don't want to have one lock or one door inside the house that's got a lever on it and the rest of them have doorknobs. And there's nobody that lives in my house that is physically challenged that they can't turn a doorknob. So I had to drive all over Hell's Half Acre to find one. Find a replacement anyway. Key goes in, it turns. We know that this part of the lock is fine. So I can probably even just keep this piece because this piece is still good for future use, even though it's now got a lock that is keyed to a lock that I don't have, or keys for. These are the only two keys for this lock. It was a different lock. It was on my office door, and it was different than the rest. And I keep my office door locked when I'm not at home because, well, I store some equipment in there, and not that I don't trust my son because he was home when I was away, but let's just say I don't trust any of his friends that he might invite over to have a beer or to watch a movie or something. If he invited somebody over, I don't trust them. So I keep my office and I keep my bedroom locked if I'm not home, just because, as I say, I don't know that he's going to bring anybody in. But if he does, I don't trust them because I don't know them. Anyway, I got myself locked out, so I had to break in, and we're going to take this thing apart and see why it failed. I know when I did pull it apart, a lot of black, it looked almost like graphite, but there was a lot of black powder that had formed in the actual hole in the door. When I pulled the lock apart, it all fell out. So something in here wore out and failed. And we're going to find out in this video as I take this lock apart, or at least take this portion of the lock apart. So I think they're just bent, so I should be able to use something that I can grip it with and unbend these tabs like this, and the lock should come apart. Okay, now if I pry this with a screwdriver of some type, a slotted screwdriver preferably, I should be able to pop this apart and see what's under here. It should come apart quite easy, I would think. But then again, I've never taken a lock apart before, so I could be completely wrong. And I may end up injuring myself in the process of playing with hand tools without protection. I think I gotta bend this one just a little bit more. Now, it's not my intent to try and fix this lock, but if I do fix it, so be it. Okay, so that's all that's in here. And there's a spring, obviously. And this is just jammed. And that is likely all that's wrong with this thing, is that the button here, normally when you turn it, it pops out. It's not popping out. So why is it stuck? See, this is how they lock. When you push it in, it pushes the. This should normally be pushed back. But what the heck has gone wrong with this thing? It's almost like it's slipped. Like that. That's how it's supposed to pop out, like that. You see, when you push it in to lock it, and you turn it. The latch, it goes through like that. Sits sitting on these ones or the other two. I think it's through these ones like this. So when you turn it, it retracts the bolt like that. Like that. It goes in that way, I think. And then the spring goes around like this. And then this piece sits over top. I think that's how it goes. It goes back together. Maybe the spring goes in the other way. The spring's popping through here. That's probably what broke, is the spring wore down and popped through this, popped through the cage. Okay, put the spring in this way so that the larger end is facing over top of there, like that. Okay, now oh, see, that's what happened to it. It wouldn't unlock. That's exactly what happened. When I went to unlock it, it didn't pop out. And of course, once the pins are locked into the lock plate here, you're not turning the lock. Yeah, see, that's exactly what happened. It got stuck. Because normally these would sit down, it would sit down on here like this, right? With these two levers locking that in place. looks like it should fit on here like this, but something should be, is there a missing washer to stop the spring from popping through the middle? It's almost like there's supposed to be something like a washer or something in place here on top, and nothing came out, but it sure looks like there's supposed to be a washer or something to keep that spring from falling through. Either that or it does indeed go in this way, which it might be. It might. We lock, and we don't unlock. If we look at how this operates, when you push it in, this plate goes up like that, and you turn it to lock, and it sits in the lock position like that. And then when you unlock it, it's supposed to turn back and drop down. Like that. But it's not. See, when you lock, you push in, and you turn your lock to the lock position. When you put the key in, the key turns the shaft inside. Smaller shaft here turns the inside. So either the keyway that this goes in got damaged, fell apart, which is possible, or it just got jammed. Normally when you turn it, when you put the key in, it turns the knob back, and the knob will drop back down like that and unlock it. This pushes up against the locking mechanism, which is that. So when you lock it, it pushes that up and latches. This is what locks the door. It stops the pin from turning. Okay, even without putting the lock all back together, I found out what went wrong with it. It's actually inside the handle here. When you turn the key, of course, turns the shaft that's supposed to turn the knob. And it's not. And the reason it's not is because inside the handle, if we look down inside here, the shaft fits down into this opening down here, and it's wore out. Just from the years of use, it's worn it round. So even if this was working properly, it won't turn the lock back to the unlock position. It just turns and it never moves the lock back like that, because the hole inside the bottom of the lock here, as you can see, has rounded off over the years. So there's nothing for the square shaft here to turn. You see, that fits down inside here, and it's worn out. So even if I fix this portion of the lock's never going to work. But all I need to do to make this lock work is just replace this handle, replace the doorknob, and any type of, even the ones used, like I think for even the privacy ones will probably work for that portion. Maybe not. I don't think they have a shaft in them to begin with. They just have a spring release. But anyway, the problem is this part. There's what the wear out is on this. But how they operate is when you push the button in, it raises up this piece, and that holds it in place like that. And then when you turn the key turns through that shaft, it turns that hole that is now rounded out. As you can see, it's worn out, and allows it to drop out. When it drops out, this latch mechanism to latch the door thing's completely worn out, this lock, but normally this sits in kind of like that. The spring keeps the other pieces of the lock in the unlocked position so that it can turn freely from both sides. So if I were to put this together, just going to bend it ever so slightly so it doesn't pop apart on me. When the lock is normally put together like this, when you turn the doorknob, it does that, opens the lock. Same with on this side. When you turn it on this side, it'll do the same. And when you push the lock in, if we can see, the teeth will engage. And when the teeth have engaged, the teeth now prevent the lock from turning. And if we pull it apart here, these teeth here have engaged and they're protruding down through these holes in the mechanism. So that gets pushed up like that, you see, when you lock it. When you push the button in, it pushes it back like that, and then when you unlock it, they drop back. Not to say this one here I had to pry it apart, so I'm sure there's parts that are bent in here that's why it's not working properly, is because I bent these pieces getting in because I had to pry my way in. But now we know what went wrong with this lock. It was actually not this mechanism, it was the center of the knob itself was worn out. So there's, you lock it and those teeth lock. Unlock it. There you go, see, now it's working. Lock, unlock, lock, unlock. But when I put the key in, it's supposed to turn the knob and release it. It doesn't. And that's how I found myself last night, trying to get in, and the key was just doing that. Nothing was happening. It wasn't turning this back to let it pop out so that I could unlock the door. Anyway, that's the anatomy of one of these Weiser locks. Hope you guys learned something. I certainly did. I've never taken one of these apart before, so this was kind of a learning experience for me to see how they work. So now I can just throw this thing back together, because I know that if I ever want to use this lock again, I gotta get a new knob for it. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this one. Thanks for watching.